Oh boy, it's been a bit over a year since Capcom released their biggest title, Monster Hunter World. The game that sold over 12 million copies worldwide and finally put Monster Hunter on the map for so many people. The game has undergone a lot of changes since it first came out. We got new events with new rewards and quests themed around said events, new collaborations with beloved franchises, new monsters that will make you want to bite your toenails off, and literally hundreds of new weapons. That being said, now more than ever it is the perfect time to jump back into Monster Hunter World if you ever stopped playing it. There's more than enough content to keep you busy until the new expansion Iceborne releases in autumn later this year. So with that in mind, let's go over what has changed since the game's launch so you can decide if you want to return to Monster Hunter World or not. After all, it's not like every single one of the 12 million players have stuck around for that long, so having said that, what's different in Monster Hunter World? Well, let me tell you. First, let's talk about the thing you're probably the most excited about, the new monsters. The first one we got was an old classic, Deviljho. This angry pickle is a longtime fan favorite that is known for its difficulty and for ruining many players' quests, as it will show up out of nowhere just to ruin your hunt. It had been announced that Deviljho would come to Monster Hunter World shortly after the game's release, so when he arrived in a new world on March 22nd, everyone was excited. It was a good challenge for both newcomers and veterans alike. Its new mechanic where it holds another monster in its mouth and uses it against you was refreshing and gave birth to many memes in the community. This green glutton not only put up a good fight but also gave players a set of brand new weapons, with a good number of them still being top of the class to this day. The return of Deviljho was great fan service for old fans of the series, and at the same time a rite of passage for newcomers. So the introduction of this brute wyvern left the players excited for what other downloadable content they would see in future updates. After that, the second monster we got in Monster Hunter World was the infamous Colt Roth, the monster that went on to change the endgame and that frustrated so many players. This frustration, however, did not come from the difficulty of the quest, but rather from the rewards that came with it. You see, Colt Roth rewarded players with 2 armor sets, which is standard, but instead of giving players a set of craftable weapons, players would get randomly selected weapons that would be drawn from a weapon pool that is exclusive to Colt Roth. This weapon pool contains literally hundreds of different weapons, with many of them pretty weak, but with some being the strongest weapons in the game. The fight itself was pretty fun. It was a much more engaging siege quest than Zora Magdaros, and the fact that it involves teamwork and cooperation of everyone in the session makes you feel like you are all contributing and working together towards a common goal. And I do have to admit, Colt Roth was pretty challenging at first, especially in the last phase of the fight, where she fills the room with lava. But it can be very frustrating if you're trying to get specific weapons from her, especially considering that later updates expanded the weapon pool, further diluting it and decreasing your chance of getting that one weapon you have been chasing for months. However, on the other hand, this can be a great experience for a more casual player, as you may get a powerful weapon from a weapon type you have never used before, and so you could feel encouraged to try it out, given that you won't have to craft a basic weapon and upgrade it 6 times just to be able to test it against strong monsters. Overall, Colt Roth is a very controversial monster in the community, but you are probably going to find some enjoyment out of it, and hopefully good weapons as well, especially if you go in with your friends. The third addition to Monster Hunter World's monster roster was Lunastra, the Blue Empress that is the female counterpart to Astra. She is another returning monster that has been a part of the series for many years. At first, many people were upset after seeing that Lunastra was the next monster that Capcom was going to add to the game, as they were calling her just a Astra reskin. However, once Lunastra arrived in the new world, players realized just how different she was when compared to her male counterpart. Not only was she much more powerful, but she also felt like a unique monster that is related to Astra, but isn't just a blatant clone of him. Her blue flames would fill the entire area you would be fighting her in, and her devastating supernova had an extremely large range, and consequently, wiped the floor with many hunters on their first attempts. On top of that, whenever she would be together with Astra, they would perform a bonding attack, where both Elder Dragons used their supernovas. As you could expect, many hunters did not make it back in one piece. But her rewards were very much worth it, as in addition to giving us 2 pretty good armor sets, she also gave us 56 new weapons. Basically, each weapon type would have a base version, which could then be upgraded to 3 different versions. Each of these variants come with different stats, but the most standout feature about them is that they come with armor skills. And it's not just any armor skill, it's actually skills that you get as set bonuses for equipping multiple pieces of the same armor set. The blaze weapons come with the skill Guts, that comes from the Lunastra set bonus, the ruin weapons come with the skill Hasten Recovery, the Nergigante set bonus, and the Styx weapons come with the skill Razor Sharp or Spare Shot, depending if you're using a melee weapon or a ranged weapon, which are the Xeno'jiiva set bonus. Some of these weapons are still frequently used in endgame activities, such as the Styx bowguns for example. The introduction of weapons with skills is quite the interesting concept, one that players thoroughly enjoyed, as it allows for a lot more freedom when it comes to creating your own build. That being said, despite being a frustrating monster to deal with, Lunastra ended up being a welcome addition to the roster, especially considering the rewards she offered. In early August, players saw the introduction of Behemoth, the new monster that arrived in a new world as part of the Final Fantasy XIV collaboration. The announcement of this update left the community in awe. None of us saw that coming. The Monster Hunter franchise is known to have wacky and crazy collaborations, but we never got something on such a large scale. As someone who has been playing both Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy ever since I was a kid, this had me extremely excited. This was Joker being announced for Smash, that's what it felt like to me. And the collaboration didn't just add Behemoth, it also gave us a new quest where you fought a cool Yaku that is holding an aether crystal that makes it grow incredibly tall, all the while the Chocobo race theme is playing in the background, which is a cool Easter egg. I mean, the whole collaboration is filled with Easter eggs and references. You even get a Palico outfit that turns your Palico into a Moogle, which is very fitting since my Palico is named Kupo. And fighting Behemoth is something extraordinary, something never before seen in the Monster Hunter franchise. It's a raid-like experience where party members need to take designated roles. It can be difficult at first, but a well-coordinated group will be able to find success. It is no doubt one of the biggest challenges the game has to offer, but it also feels so satisfying to win, and the rewards that you get in the end are very much worth it, as they include a new Insect Glaive and a Kinsect, as well as the Draken armor set, which is based on the Dragoon's iconic armor from Final Fantasy, and this Draken armor set is, without a shadow of a doubt, the strongest armor set in the game. It's so strong to the point where 90% of endgame builds use 4 armor pieces from that set. Seriously, it's that good. And the other 2 monsters that we got in Monster Hunter World were the Leshen and the Ancient Leshen, which were added as part of another collaboration, this time with The Witcher 3, a game that I am very much fond of. Just like with the Final Fantasy XIV collaboration, the developers also paid lots of attention to detail in this new collaboration. You will find plenty of Easter eggs and references and even dialogue options while you play as Geralt in the special assignment Contract Trouble in the Ancient Forest, a quest that even has side quests and secrets within it. And fighting the Ancient Leshen is pretty challenging, but should you succeed you will be able to craft Ciri's weapon and upgrade Geralt's weapon, but not only that, but you will also be able to craft layered armors to make your character look like Geralt or Ciri. All of these monsters were meaningful additions to Monster Hunter World and have helped extend its endgame. Speaking of endgame, we should also talk about Arch-Tempered monsters. Arch-Tempered monsters were introduced shortly after Lunastra was added to the game, and they were able to extend the endgame quite a bit since you would want to farm these Arch-Tempered monsters for their rewards, the Gamma armor sets. These Gamma armor sets were for the most part significantly more powerful than their Alpha and Beta counterparts, and as such players that wanted to optimize their builds and go for time attack runs or whatever else may be would need to face these Arch-Tempered monsters in order to get those rewards. These arch-tempered monsters were more challenging than their regular or tempered counterparts, but the thing is that it was simply artificial difficulty. By that I mean that the developers chose to greatly increase the damage of the monsters that became arch-tempered, but it ended up being an uninspired experience with some exceptions like Xeno'jiiva that got an expanded moveset and made for a much better experience. Overall, many players were displeased with the arch-tempered system as a whole, mainly because they were expecting more frequent large updates that would introduce new monsters and locations, but what they got instead was the same monsters but only stronger and would occasionally have a couple of new moves. On top of that, only Elder Dragons became arch-tempered monsters, and as such you had a lower variety of monsters to fight against in the endgame. In addition to that, arch-tempered monsters are only available in event quests, so that means that they will only be up for a limited time frame, and if you miss out on one, well, you will just have to wait until the event quests are back in rotation. That being said, it felt like the developers were just padding the length of the game to keep the players playing the game for longer periods of time, but at the same time, given that we have received all of these updates and events for free, I feel like it was a welcome addition, and as long as we get some fresh new content in Iceborne, I think everyone will be happy with what we have gotten so far. Speaking of events, I think that this is the perfect time to talk about the festivals that we have received as well as the new event quests that we have received in the game since its launch. Now, I am obviously not going to be listing them here because there's a ton of new event quests that we have received, and then there's also the festivals. The festivals are essentially these small celebrations that last for 2 weeks, maybe a bit more than that in the case of the anniversary event that we just had in early January. And during these festivals the gathering hub is redecorated, we get new event quests, we get some thematic outfits and new armor sets for our Palico and for the hunters, and it's just a nice event to have every now and then. Furthermore, during these festivals you can do most of the event quests that have been available since the launch of the game. And among these event quests you'll find some very silly ones where you go up against some huge monsters that are typically very small, and you go up against some very small monsters that are typically huge, and there's some other events that help you get materials that you need to use in the endgame, such as armor spheres, such as stream stones, and there was even an event where you would fight a giant great jaguars that would even stomp on a devil joe, but if you succeeded on the quest you would be rewarded with a ton of decorations at the end. Basically, Capcom was listening to the criticism that Monster Hunter World seemed to be taken too seriously by the developers, as you could observe by the very basic weapon design that is present in the game, and as such the developers decided to add some new event quests that brought some fresh new weapon designs, some silly ones at that, such as the Downy Crake dual blades for example, or the Bristly Hammer, which just look very wacky and silly, and those are the type of event quests that we all want to see more often in Monster Hunter World. And of course, we cannot talk about events without mentioning the many collaborations the game has seen since its launch. We have already talked about the larger ones, the Final Fantasy XIV collaboration and the Witcher 3 collaboration that added Behemoth and the Leshen as well as the Ancient Leshen respectively, but we have also had many smaller collaborations with various different franchises such as Mega Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry and Assassin's Creed. These collaborations would usually give you some very small rewards such as a new armor set, a new weapon, a new outfit for your Palico, nothing too special or out of the ordinary, but these would come along with a new event quest that would usually pay homage to the franchise that this collaboration is from. After only a year of the game being released, we have already received so many collaborations, and by just looking at the history of the Monster Hunter games and what other collaborations the older games have done in the past, I'm excited to see what other collaborations we are going to get in the future. And of course, when we talk about the future, I have to talk about the Iceborne expansion that is going to be coming in autumn later this year. Iceborne is going to give us brand new locales, brand new monsters to fight against, hopefully we'll see new monster types as well, some returning ones that we have not seen in the new world yet, and with it we'll get new features, quality of life improvements, and the game is already phenomenal as it is, so I really cannot wait to see how it turns out to be once the expansion releases. And who knows, we may even get new stuff before Iceborne drops. We have the 15th anniversary of the franchise coming very soon, and we're likely going to see some very big announcements there. There is a rumor that there is going to be a new Nintendo Switch game. I even made a video talking about that and how the developers seem to be hinting at that from previous interviews. But given how big Monster Hunter World is, I can't imagine the developers simply ignoring the game on the 15th anniversary of the franchise and not saying anything about it. At the very least, we are getting new details in regards to Iceborne, and I'll be sure to keep you guys notified as soon as we get those. But in the meantime, if you have enjoyed this video, then please leave it a like, it takes less than a second and it greatly helps me out. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and turn on channel notifications if you don't want to miss an ounce of Monster Hunter goodness. We've got loads of videos coming very soon to the channel, so hopefully you guys look forward to those. As always, a huge thank you goes out to my patrons for choosing to support me and helping me keep this channel alive. You guys are my heroes, especially Jeff Baxter for going Plus Ultra. As you guys know, I am a university student, this is not my full-time job or anything, so I rely on your guys' support to keep this channel going. If you would like to support me, then the link to my Patreon is down below in the description. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, my name is DarkHero, and happy hunting!